Hi, I am back with some slightly better technological capabilities here. We're doing screen sharing. Ooh, I know, I'm like so behind. But I took a little time to just kind of play around with this and get an idea of how this all works and make sure I can seamlessly transition through this video. So, the subject at hand is extensive data shows punishing reach of racism for Black boys. This is from the New York Times, and This aired. It's not a show. This was published on March 19th, and so primarily, what I wanted to do was talk about once I finished reading it, what really jumped out at me particularly is I would say subtly, but maybe not so much. There's a separation here. Like forever and ever, in most recent history, the story is white supremacy, white racism bears down on Black people and other non white people too, but particularly Black people. And we need tools, approaches, policies, laws that remove that from Black men and women, boys and girls. But what this article does is in many parts separate Black boys from Black girls and things that affect and basically suggests that Black boys are their own category to themselves, and it's based on two metrics. Well, one, as you can see right here, they're displaying that there's a lot less of a distance between Black women and women in terms of income, average individual income, and whatever percentile we're measuring income rate of parents. Okay, so we have the X, we have the Y, and then here you see the disparity, the larger disparity between Black men and white men, and so we kind of hit. That's the kind of one of the overarching strides here of this article. Now, just a little note, I have a physical copy that I printed just so I can mark up with just different thoughts and ideas. So as I'm navigating this with you on screen, I'm also taking pauses to refer back to a physical copy that I have right here. Physical copy. So you know it's right here. So that'll just give me those moments to pause. So I'm just going to move through a few key points that they mention and just kind of really coalesce what I'm trying to suggest about how this article specifically is making this attempt to separate Black boys from Black girls. So right before I do that, I guess the follow-up point, the second point that I really want to address here is, since this is written, and I started thinking about the Moynihan report, and this comes up in quite a few Black circles, particularly amongst kind of what has been colloquially described as a He-Man Black Women Haters Club. And I don't. It doesn't just isn't just them. That's just maybe one specific, more extreme spot of it. But you even see this. I was doing an internet search on YouTube, just a couple of videos I was trying to pull and just look for certain things I thought might be of benefit for this video. And when you talk about the whole no Black fathers in the home and this constant story that we've been fed, so I'm already stepping all over the place. How about this? I'm going to backtrack. Let me just read a couple other excerpts from this article. And what I'd like to do is just kind of just hone in on the article itself, and then we're going to take a few steps out and back and move around. And there's some videos I want to pull to discuss as well. Okay. Okay. So here's one. So this inequality can't be explained by individual or household traits. Much of what matters probably lies outside the home, in surrounding neighborhoods, in the economy, and in a society that views Black boys differently from white boys, and even from Black girls. Okay. So there's one spot there. And there's another one that's just kind of stands out again, that this is something that was really kind of poking right out of this article from the get-go. Okay. And okay, here we go. Previous research suggests some reasons there may be a large income gap between black and white men, but not between women, even though women of color face both sexism and racism. Other studies show that across races are that boys across races are more sensitive than girls to disadvantages like growing up in poverty or facing discrimination. While black women also face the negative effects of racism, black men often experience racial discrimination differently. As early as preschool, they are more likely to be disciplined in school. They are pulled over or detained and searched by police officers more often. It's not just being black, but being black and male that has been hyper stereotyped in this negative way. Well, let me stop there because we'll come back to that one too. So the setup here within this article is that, well, there's all these things affecting black. It's challenging this kind of story that's been put out here that this white man's supremacy and racism, is this shade, is this sun that casts all the shade below over everything below it, black boys, black girls, even white women, other non-white peoples below him. But here in this article in particular, they're just subtly trying to attempt to extricate the black woman or girl from this, but they're not really adding any other caveats or any other type of explanations because the whole point of this is just to say that these poor black boys, there's just something so wrong and we need to do something about it, even at the expense of basically selling this premise that doesn't offer any other details. Like, for instance, but I just reading this just separated race from the equation. What are some of the key differences or distinctions between boys and girls, men and women? Um, this seems a little bit just kind of out there to say, but think about the type of reproductive and sex organs that we carry. That's one marker, having breasts, not having breasts, having external genitalia like a penis or like testicles versus having more internal sex organs like ovaries, uterus. Just the physical nature of being between men and women on that front, when we take race completely out of the picture, gives us vast differences in living life, the way we think about reproduction, the way we think about our own senses of being is a key thing. And instead of just so they're just sitting here noticing that the income differences between black women and white women are closer versus men and boys, they're not really explaining anything else there. So, what I think I'm going to do here is then mention that when I first came across this article, it was on Twitter, and Steve Saylor showed this article, tweeted this, and so that's where I caught it one morning. So he kind of moves through a few different things. So I'm on his Twitter feed from kind of, I think this is like one of the earliest tweets. Oh, there's me as a reply. So this must have been a thread that I must have commented on. So here's his tweet. African American women get a lot of government jobs that are reserved for U.S. citizens, so they aren't as hurt by Hispanic immigration competition as Black men are hurt. So I must have responded someplace down further in this thread because I think in the article itself they might have referenced Chick-fil-A, but I can't recall. So when we factor in a lot of set asides that already exist, as far as government jobs go, and so for instance, this is something that comes up a bit in some circles where, well, technically under affirmative action, white women, as women alone and not being white men, fall under some of those protections or maybe certain types of jobs that they're able to maybe be selected for. And so then you go just as what he suggested here, that we as black women tend to get government jobs that are reserved for citizens because as just as women, they fall under a protected category versus men, where they be black or white aside. So that's one thing that we see there. I'm just gonna move up a little bit. Mm, I hadn't. I must have missed this one in the original that there were first day or so that this was published, and I thought this was interesting. The triumph of feminism in the 70s and 80s was a triumph of white privilege. Apparently, black women in 1970 made more money than white women with the same education level, probably because so many more white moms were stay-at-home moms. That was something interesting to consider too, and that kind of feeds back into a lot of discussions amongst black men, particularly in the kind of the more combative side of a lot of these of black male commentators online. We just was taking all the jobs, but then you add that caveat. Well, and then you think of the fact that black women typically have always worked. There was never this kind of chocolate dip, leave it to beaver existence where black men went to work, were married and went to work and came home and brought back the bacon for women and children. Excuse me, women and children. So we have never really had that type of existence, which will kind of go into later what I want to talk about in terms of fatherhood and what they're suggesting here in this article. So in the original New York Times piece. So let me see if there's anything else here in Sailor's feed that I want to look at. Okay. No, I think we're kind of done here. But since I'm already here on this screen, because I guess maybe this will kind of, well, here's one. Economist Raj Chetty's New York newspapers showing black women don't regress as far toward the mean income as black men do, reverse sexist and thus sexist and or racist. Dylan Matt and Fox words about this for you. Ooh, interesting. I'm super duper, super, 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 super tired of the way sociological data is used to reify the myth that black women are superhuman. The historian and philosopher of science Shonda Prescott Weinstein wrote. There seems to be a thing amongst female SJWs like not how exhausted you are by people not automatically submitting to your arguments. Yeah, interestingly, I didn't. Oh my, I must have missed this in the original feed because I was too busy reading this article and just kind of jumping around trying to find different things to talk about. But I know her. She's the like half black, half Jewish chick. Writes about a lot of these things. So, but actually, I'm taking this as an excerpt from Steve's article. So, interestingly enough, I have to sit on both sides of the fence with this because yeah, but see, the funny thing is, I kind of don't because I'm kind of tired of the fact that a lot of these black, half Jewish, whatever people who want to SJW on behalf of black womanhood to a certain degree don't understand that at a certain point you can't just kind of be coddling one side of the argument. So, and to a certain degree, yeah, I'm sick of that myth too. And that's actually just her description there, just on his face, is kind of what really bugged me about this piece. But it's because it's not that black women are superhuman. And my overall problem with this article was that it's almost kind of segueing into what a lot of the argument is, this kind of argument that too many black men have, on the left and the right, have made this argument out of. And you see it especially with the whole Democrat plantation, Planned Parenthood, normie conservative type of arguments. I actually have a video here on this channel where I played this exchange between Halsey and Tree of Logic, where they're literally just embodying this typical conservative argument of like, well, just all these black women with all their children and Tyrone in jail, but then we can't abort any of those precious babies. And the Democrat plantation has all these people. But there's discussions that black women need to bring to the forefront and stop being a pawn of either the left or the right in these discussions, because we just have sat here and let other people make these arguments on our behalf without being honest. Because you can't be honest when you're trying to coddle, the black male, masculinity. And you can't, because as Kendall St. Charles pointed this out, she did this one video about the umbilical cord and the phallus and the umbilical cord, this kind of understanding or idea of, the black woman is so tied to her black male son and his image. Look at all the black women, even women who never had anything to do, who never met Trayvon or Mike Brown, just flailing and crying about over their both, untimely deaths at the hands of some white popo or some half Hispanic white black grandmother having mestizo type dude halfway across the country. So there's that. But then, yeah, it is exhausting, Steve Saylor. And I agree with you because her argument, they're making these arguments that are valid. I don't like the superhuman type too, and I don't like how this New York Times article is reifying data that if you don't unpack it, but then there's the rub. Black women refuse to unpack it, and so we're always left with all these studies and these stories that don't really have any type of anything to really kind of just go off of because we won't tell the truth. So we'll just keep moving through there. Uh, Here we go. Sorry, but Chetty's data on incarceration showed that the vastly higher criminality rates among Black men are what keep Black men from benefiting from affirmative action as most Black women do. So, okay. And I'm not really going to go back into the original tweet particularly. Oh, yeah, I think, it's weird how not often that I'm not actually in Twitter on a desktop. I forget that this is what it does. But so that's an interesting one right there, where which you're going to get to because they mentioned incarceration rates too. Because while I'm looking through this, I'm just going to riff on that for a second. So we talk about higher incarceration rates, like it's like saying higher proportion of rain in the months of March through May versus the months of October through December. We talk about incarceration rates in this disembodied sense. Now, let me put aside my Ron Paul post-libertarian, what is a crime, First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment protections, violations that we as citizens may engage in. So there's certainly things that we commit as citizens across race, across class that are crimes. But we say higher incarceration rates. We say it as if these men particularly aren't doing things that are considered criminal that get them arrested. So if we had lower incarceration rates, we just assume that we just have lower amount. Like I have too many boxes that need to be recycled sitting in my garage. So if I just had less of them, I'd have more space to store things. Yes, that is. So that's just it's something I need to do, an action I need to take to remove them. It's not that these boxes just come out of nowhere. There is an action, and then it has an equal and opposite reaction. So I, you know, play knockout king on some guy. He, doesn't have a concealed carry license, but I'm caught on a camera outside of a store. Within a week or so, someone tracks me down, then I'm arrested. I, I can go on and on with examples like that. So when we talk about these things, we're still all not really being completely honest here with these discussions. So, I think I think we're already back at the top. So we'll just leave that there. I'm going to leave this one ready to go because this one, I think, since we are kind of feeding back, we are talking about the study. While I'm already here, before we start the videos, for instance, I'm just going to walk through this Twitter feed from Dr. Wakanda's Dr. Funkenstein. So I know you can, let me just double check to make sure that you all can see. You can still see while I move through this. So this is just some Black man. I went through his actual original feed a bit. I don't know how I ended up over here on this timeline. This feed he writes about the article. But, it wouldn't hurt to just read through it quickly and then stop and make a few points. So, some initial thoughts about the New York Times reporting on the income disparity study by Chetty et al. First, Black boys and men really are hurt more than Black girls and women in some ways in America. That alone is an incredible finding. Higher levels of Black male disadvantage. The data from the Chetty et al. Study shows Black boys and men are dogged at all incomes by particular racism that is rooted in fear and ongoing elevated surveillance of Black males. New York Times story hints at presentation, how we dress is a key factor in how we will be treated. Pause. I'll pause there. In the article towards the end, there's this kind of like wraparound caveat by a biracial, even though they kind of he identifies as Black, and then in the little subnote to his photo, they say he's one of these rare Black boys who made it out and he didn't stay poor, comparatively speaking, to his parents. And he's saying, well, should I wear a blazer or not, or wear a hoodie or not? Well, Nah, I don't want to dip back over just to grind that point in. But again, this is a recycled, regurgitated portion of the whole. If I'm wearing a hoodie, you guys all remember that, like within the past year or so, well, not past years, so a little longer now, like 2 to 5 years, when the whole hoodie thing was a thing, and the congressmen, people were wearing hoodies, and the hoodie, how we dress. If it was really that simple, no, there's things that people have now noticed about black men and black people collectively over time that they're reacting to. So presentation, how we dress is a key factor in how you be treated. I'm pretty sure you're not showing up at a law firm for an interview in a hoodie anyway, or sweatpants. So that really has little to no bearing. So this idea that wearing a hoodie out in public is really hurting you, I don't know. Let's keep moving. The implications for demonstrated elevated levels of black male disadvantage are tremendous, especially if we're seeing how we present professional, working class, or criminal. It's particularly important in terms of our chance of upper mobility or staying upper class. No, not necessarily presenting as criminal. I mean, there's not. I can't think of any particular garb someone wears that presents as criminal. Carrying an open carry gun, waving in your hand like a smoking gun, that could be presented as criminal. You have a bloodstained knife in your hand and you're wandering about with it. That presents as criminal. But how you present as criminal, that's a little more unpacking that I'd want to do in that statement. But I find it very interesting that this is how he chooses to phrase this. So moving forward, my second thought along these lines is that while we most certainly live in a patriarchal and sexist society, the data show that black men don't occupy an advanced position in terms of income equality. How do we understand the way that America's patriarchy hurts black men more? That's really, really funny to me. When you move into a lot of these certain black men talking about how black women just aren't feminine enough, we won't let them lead, let them do anything. And there's all this kind of pushback. I'm gonna kind of weave around here, so my apologies right now. Especially when you get into the more MGTOW red pill circles, and then the IB more type of black men. It's basically an offshoot of MGTOW that's supposed to be very black male specific, and they tend to want to, and rightfully, wrongfully, I don't have a real axe to grind against most of the more quote unquote white traditional MGTOW circles. I do read Return of Kings here and there. I like Roosh, I like Matt Forney, and some of those other guys in those circles. So I can't, I'm not really speaking ill against them, but I'm finding it more and more funny that on one hand, there'll be these discussions amongst black men that say we need more patriarchy, more traditionalism, more values, but then we come back over to this guy. It's almost like the kind of left right you know distribution here. So they're basically saying how the patriarchy hurts black men. America's patriarchy, you basically mean white men's patriarchy. I don't really know what you're talking about, because more black men on those sides of the table who are talking about we need a black male patriarchy. So whose patriarchy is keeping you down? Is it the fact that black men collectively have a lack of any kind of collective patriarchal stance in their own race, in their own communities? Like, whose patriarchy is hurting you? It's in a weird way, without being specifically mean. And just rereading this again, I've read this feed back and forth. That really just jumps out at me for the first time, where it's kind of like, oh, well, wait a second. You kind of sound like some white SJW feminist type chick. Well, the patriarchy hurts black men. And again, this ties back into the 60s and this kind of the movements where you have a lot more black men complaining about feminism, saying that black women align with the feminists against the black man, put him out the home for wicked welfare and hair weaves, dot, 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 dot. But you guys kind of, in this feed, you sound just like some kind of complaining ass woman running your mouth about the patriarchy hurting you. You're a man. Patriarch kind of implies masculine rule or identity. Are you, as a black man, so stripped of this that you don't really have anything to do but complain about America's patriarchy that hurts black men more? Let's keep it moving. My third thought on the findings of black men in a neighborhood affecting life chances for black boys. I think it's very interesting. Many of those black men are incarcerated, so the impact. I just did it again. All right, bear with me, folks. Don't click, just scroll. Don't click, just scroll. I'm gonna write that on my hand. Okay. My third thought on the findings of black men in the neighborhood affecting the chances for black boys. That I think is very interesting because many of those black men are incarcerated, so the impact of mass incarceration is revealed in terms of life chances for black boys. Going back to just the most recent election, the Hillary Clinton super predator comment came up, and you got some Black Lives Matter types, getting her face about it. And this is, when we think about the mass incarceration, particularly kind of leading out of the 80s into the 90s and under Bill Clinton, and just even to this day, the way the laws really changed and the way we already kind of are on this like little dance back and forth about how long to incarcerate people for which crimes, where they end up disproportionately falling, etc. So yeah, mass incarceration is has an effect, but again, like I was seeing about the Moynihan report, these are things that were already have been said for so long, and you're just kind of repeating the same type of pablum about oh, the mass incarceration. But again, if you weren't committing what is deemed a crime, now we can argue like I'm one of these like kind of post-libertarian type, I'm almost up there where I would say decriminalize heroin. Let people shoot heroin if they want. Like, that famous moment with Ron Paul, like in the presidential debates, the Republican debates a couple years back. If they legalize heroin tomorrow, would you go smoke? Would you go and start shooting up heroin tomorrow? No. So I'm actually more in that camp too. I'm very pro pot, pro legalizing, decriminalizing most drugs, etc. And since we think about that being why, besides, burglary, assault, and other types of crimes that more overwhelmingly seem to be the reasons that black men are more in jail. Again, these are crimes that black men are perpetrating. They should just not do them, and then there won't be these masses of them incarcerated. So we come back and back and back to this again. So we're going to actually get into that in some of the videos too, that I want to show and kind of walk through. So I'll just stop there. But again, they just keep talking about these mass incarcerations as if there's these white Klan members just walking up and putting smoking guns and bloody knives and bags of like contraband into black men's hands, and then they're just in jail, and this mass incarceration is just befalling them. So I didn't even walk that just quickly back to the Sailor Twitter feed line where a woman, I'm sick of this superhuman black woman. Because, yeah, we're so superhuman. We're taking all these jobs and just doing all these things. But this black male, for some reason, just cannot figure out how not to stab or shoot someone, to play knockout king on someone, to not be engaged in activities that we legally deem to be illegal in terms of law. I mean, yeah, we'll stop there. My fourth thought, though, is that framing of this data in the New York Times article is off. It's intent on highlighting black male disadvantage in a way I'm not particularly comfortable with. It's a matter of how it's discussed. Are we just saying semantics? Because your first few comments here basically suggest that you don't have a problem with it, and you're like cheering the fact that this black male cannot survive in America's patriarchy. What that means the data should be framed as a white male advantage. The data starkly illustrates white male supremacy, but they constantly highlight black male disadvantage, saying racism is white supremacy through and through. I will really limit myself here. This is saying that eventually to this channel and the things I talk about, I want to say this is a society built and mostly a country built and a Western civilization built by and for white men. I mean, white supremacy. I need to just do my full on assault of like why. Well, it's two things. It's kind of the Schrodinger's cat type of proposition. It's white supremacy because in a certain regard, whites, not every single white person are supreme, and this is their country, their Western civilization, and you and I both live and exist in. And I don't understand how you think that highlight black male disadvantage. But again, these really are disadvantages when you pick them apart, which I hope to do here within the next few minutes or so moving these videos. There's something wrong. There's something wrong with black people as a whole. I happen to be a black person, you had noticed so far on this channel, and I can openly say that and admit that. And particularly with you as black men, there's a problem with you, and there's a problem with black women. I think one big thesis here that I have about everything that I'm saying moving forward is you are, as black men, collectively cut out for Western civilization, for a first world society, where you as men are expected to produce, provide, protect for your women and children. On the flip side to that, and parallel to that, the black woman in this first world Western society had periods of time where she was able to just be and exist, and her close ties, particularly to whites and and white women, in domestic servitude and slavery, there was enough proximity where she could kind of mitigate not the things that you as black men didn't bring to the table. But within the past, I would say 100 years is a larger survey, if not slightly bigger. She doesn't understand that she can't keep birthing you indiscriminately. And she can't also go wave her fist at the white man and the white supremacy when she needs to get her womb in check and to start making certain demands of you, or to not produce at all, because we're just breeding more people into a problem that has never been unpacked and never been addressed. So I'll definitely round robin back to that point, but I just want to get that out quickly here. So um, let's keep moving quickly through Wakanda's Dr. Funkenstein's statements here. So if you constantly highlight and emphasize black male disadvantage in research, then we are the problem. You try to fix us. But if you highlight white male advantage and supremacy, you make clear that we are not the problem. White supremacy is the problem. Well, no, I mean, to fix it, but then what is all the money for the programs? I'll just click over here real quick. What we're going to do is we're going to watch a clip from the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative, which is a program out of the city of Milwaukee to enable and help support black male. Well, it's for all. It's for all fathers, by the way, just so you know, because actually, spoiler alert. It's for all fathers. I didn't open the Facebook page because I just didn't want to, because I would rather do the video, but you're actually going to see where they're basically saying they have a stock photo of like some Korean guy and his little kid or something. But we all know, wink, wink, who this fatherhood initiative is for. So you'll try to fix us. But what is it that you dagnabbit? What is it that you really want people to do? All the money for the programs. We need more support. We can't get no jobs. The black women taking all the jobs. Affirmative action. White women's feminism. The welfare state. Put files out the home for wicked welfare. Every time I look up, it just feels like this is literally what you're basically saying. You want someone to fix you, but you're not going to get, like, if somebody's eating a steak, like this white man's eating like a ribeye or barbecue or filet mignon cooked perfectly medium rare with a little bit of asparagus and blue cheese butter. You're basically, let's just take you, if you think, and I'm just being very basic here, he's going to give that up for like a McDonald's double cheeseburger, hold the pickles. No. So white supremacy can be the problem, but this is their first world Western society that you live in, just like I live in. So it'd be behoove you and other black men to just stop begging outside. It's like this is this is literally what this is. I think that it's not just black men. This is a lot of non-white people in general, which is part of the reason the alt-right, the dissident right, and a lot of these types of movements and arguments have come to the forefront, is because these non-white races, and then a certain segments of white women, SJW types particularly, and just a lot of other general white women, they're just going to stand outside the white man's window with a radio boombox over their head until until you come out in the balcony or open the window up and whatever it is you're going to do, and just save them or stop doing what your white supremacists, white male asses do. I don't know. But then you don't want them to fix. Then what is all this for? Why are we spending money on them programs? Why do we have Jesse Jackson's Push Coalition? Why do we have the presidency of Barack Obama? And we can, well, we don't have to go back to it, but in the New York Times piece, well, why not? We'll just move back over to it, because that might be a nice little fun point to kind of jump over to. So My Brother's Keeper, for instance, why do we have programs like that and money that is being spent at the federal level and actually down to city, municipal, and local level, which we'll see in a second, that we have to spend on you? I would just say take this New York Times article as you want and just move away from it, because that's literally what you and most black men and black people and other non-white people generally want. You want whitey, quote unquote, to keep spending money, run New York Times articles like this, that there's something wrong. What is it that you don't want? Like, at a certain point, especially for men, women have a way we can get away with, like, begging, crying, whining. It's to a certain degree a part of our existence and how we live and how we exist. that we can get away with those things. But for men, and I've heard other black women kind of say this in certain discussions, doesn't the black man just start to feel kind of like, and this sounds cruel, but I don't care, like a bitch, that he's kind of crying and whining about how he just can't get nowhere, can't do nothing. This white man so oppressive. Kendall did, like, it was kind of very tongue in cheek, but she's like, at a certain point, you sit here. This black man got so much power. He can help keep you out the home, so your girl can get WIC and welfare and food stamps, and he got the power to oppress you. To first you've been selling yourselves and each other to the Muslims, then you start selling yourself to him. He got you in bondage here with me and our kids in tow in this new world across this African diaspora. At a certain point, you have to start, in which the conversation has slowly opened up, and it's been opening for some time amongst black women. Well, wait a second. Oh, this white man this powerful, huh? Because then now, and this is where this is maybe even more of going back to what I said originally, this New York Times piece. Wait a second. So it was one thing when you were saying we was in this together, and that we was being oppressed together, and that would continue onwards for a certain period of time. But now you're gonna sit here, not you particularly, because I don't think I to be honest, I want to put this together finally, then go back and look and see who the people behind this study were. But Raj particularly himself is not black or white, and there are a few people featured in here. One's a black man, one's a biracial male. And so you're telling me basically that you are so under the thumb of this white man that he just is going to oppress you, do whatever. At a certain point, is a certain black woman has to start asking herself the question, like, well, damn, who is this Mr. White Man over here? Because he got the power to keep oppressing you for all these years and years and years, and all you keep coming back to me with is the same story about how you can't get from up under him. He oppressing you. You somebody to fix, but that's basically what you're doing. So just here again, my brother's keeper. This was the the White House initiative about a mentor initiative for Black boys, by the way. And also one of the other clips that I pulled, it's back in the other window, is BAM, Becoming a Man, Black Becoming a Man. It's another initiative that's in the Chicago Public Schools area, but it can be for anyone who happens to be in that demographic in those schools. But there's been all these pushes. So this whole New York Times article, it's like I just had this like feeling that we're just gonna be in this kind of like, if you're anybody's familiar with Twin Peaks. I just finally watched the entire series, watched season 3 reboot of David Lynch and Mark Frost. And if anybody's familiar with the show, the idea of the Black Lodge is kind of place that you're trapped in where things just kind of circle about for a period of time. Like I feel like this is what we are in this Black Lodge with this whole study, these stories. The Moynihan report to now, so this New York Times article, the Black father has to be in the home. We can just keep repeating this for like 50 years, but there's reasons he's not in the home. And there's some things that are very subtle that people don't really pick out. And I'm going to start picking them out here. And again, I'm just going to check in with you guys. It's probably been about maybe half an hour so far this live stream. I'm using the live function to shoot in screen. And I know this might be a little bit much for most of you folks, so I'm not going to stop, but I just wanted to let you know you might want to pause here, take a breather. I'm going to move over to a few clips, and we're just going to move through them. They're all relatively short, just so you know. So let's just get these last 2 posts from Dr. Wakanda Funkenstein, and I'll go ahead and get 1 or 2 of the first clip loaded up so we can kind of unpack this. So I don't think I really completely hit what I want to hit about the separation of Black women and girls completely. So actually, let's read these last 2. I'm going to just bounce over to this Huffington Post that references these 2 studies that I've read just the abstracts for. So I get really skittish about a lot of these social sciences studies. So I'm not even suggesting that it's like completely foolproof, but anecdotally, I think I have one anecdote that I could kind of offer that might kind of filter in a type of counter to what is being suggested. So let's just see. So this leads me to my final thought. Black men are socialized to imbibe and accept patriarchy is foundational, so our participation in patriarchy is real, whether we earn the same as white men or not. I do think it adds a kind of stress we should discuss. Yeah, but let's just go to the Asian Hispanic man. They live, and I've made this point before, in comments and privately, and thought about this for some time. The other non-white men who exist in this white Western world, I mean, maybe amongst themselves and places that I don't maybe venture or see, they probably feel the same way, but they manage to get up and put food on the table, produce, provide, protect for their women and children, and not exhibit so many of the pathologies that we see amongst black men in this country. I mean, a certain part of what we accept about masculinity in men is bucking up and living their lives to the best of their ability for themselves and for their people. I don't hear them complaining as non-white men living in a Western world that's predominantly built and orchestrated by white men. I just hear black men doing this constantly, and then as the New York Times article is attempting to do, is then it slowly push the black male away to a certain type of protected status, and then underhandedly suggest that black women are contributing to the problem and doing something untoward by accepting jobs or being gainfully employed or having to make income that's similar to white women. So I don't think there's anything to discuss, Dr. Wakanda's Dr. Funkenstein, because you are in a patriarchy. You're a man, but you're in a first world Western society built by white men, and you just have to deal with it. I don't really know what you want to talk about. It's 2018. And so again, the Moynihan report, the 60s and 70s, the drug culture, the crack culture, the further fracturing. It's 2018, and I'm still just hearing black men run their mouths about, well, we need to talk about things. No, you need to produce, provide, protect, and build. If I can watch an Asian man, and Hispanic man, who are both decidedly, in a physical sense and in a historical background, very much not white men. It's not that they're sliding around under the auspices of being, white or maybe passing for white. They manage to take care of themselves and their lives and their families, even with backgrounds historically that are maybe comparable to some of the issues and problems that they've run into as a people. Only one I hear just constantly regurgitating and saying we got to do more for the black men, more money for them programs. ... Is you. I don't see the Asian Hispanic man, at least in public circles and public spheres where people can literally see this. I don't see them making the same complaints. So this particular stress comes in from expecting patriarchy to result in us having power and access to resources. When increased resources part doesn't work out, do we then try to amplify other ways of expressing dominance? Our very expectations of male privilege are damaging. He sounds like a white woman SJW chick. Like I'm just kind of I was kind of reading this just to get an impression and then reading it through in some other ways when I first pulled this up. So I'm just very shocked and surprised, like just how SJWE that this guy sounds. He sounds like a woman. Like, yeah, you live male privilege is damaging. I mean, I'm not gonna say what I want to say. I'm kind of wondering if he has a certain type of persuasion, if you will, because it seems very odd for a certain type of man to be free, just kind of saying that he feels this way. A patriarchal society. Like he's either like really been huffing on all this like SJW speak, or he just really believes this. Like, you're a black man, you have to figure this out. You have to keep moving through. You have to like not. You just have to like get up every day and go like stab a mastodon, bring back some hide for the women and children around the fire to like sew up and cook up. You don't get to sit here and like have this existential discussion about patriarchy. So this particular stress comes in from expecting patriarchy on us having power and access to resources. Oh, I already read that. Sorry, but yeah, resources part doesn't work out. Well, like you, well, there's. I know we're gonna come back to that, so we'll just leave that there. So sixth thought, I'm a firm believer in that black data and analysis matters. I think a group of black women and men could take this data and find things shady at all miss. Also, I think many of us will report it differently. Same for black journalists too. So we can just take the same data and just come to some more black conclusion to it. Okay. Well, you said this one I liked and favorited. This is dangerous mystery that I knew was coming. Most black children don't grow up well off, and outcomes for poor and working class families tell a better picture of where we are. Achievement slash success gap between male and female is grossly overstated. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think this. So I actually replied to her when I saw this, because I didn't think that Mm, Dagnabbit. Oh, there I am. So I retweeted her and replied, "What I found more dangerous was the shade towards black women and girls, not so subtly painting us as the black man and boy's oppressor for not going to jail or being gainfully employed. I guess we're the new white man now too." Sigh. And I even got a like from Steve Saylor, which is pretty rad. So so far I've kind of moved through so the problems in this article and this underlying point that black women are just different than black boys and people see them differently, which you can argue. And I think there's in the second part of the essay article itself, there's something else a little bit more direct that I would like to take a look at. But I know you've been listening to me probably move through Twitter and move through the article itself and free talk for a bit. So what I'm going to do is we're going to move over to this. Oh, nope, not that. Let's see. Oh, wow. I was reading the tweets and I went back and I just realized you guys weren't watching me read through them. My apologies. My apologies, seriously. But I think I read pretty clearly, and you've probably heard enough there from me. So, where are we going? Let's start with. Actually, let me make sure this is the one. Yeah. Okay. I think this one is a little bit better. It's from Black Nouveau. This is it's like a channel, Milwaukee's local PBS. So I don't know. I'm trying to remember how I found this. I really can't recall, but it grabbed me like by my collar because this is really telling. We took a lot of discussions of being that black women, their welfare, their wig. There's no fathers in the home, which is this whole New York Times article is really setting you up to go to discuss. Well, they're just not in the home, and we need more of them around. But then the bait and switch they kind of pull here, which is great because I think for people like me and our side of the argument, I think this is perfect. The whole castigating black women, kicking them out for the wicked and welfare is basically upended by this assertion in the New York Times study that it's not about them being in the home, TM. It says, I don't want to move screens really quickly. Again, let me just grab it. I'll just read it to you verbally. Poor black boys did well in such places, whether their own fathers were present or not. I think actually I have to walk that back just a pinch. The few neighborhoods that met this standard were in areas that showed less discrimination in studies and tests of racial bias. They mostly had low poverty rates. And intriguingly, these pockets, including the Maryland suburbs of Washington and corners of Queens and the Bronx, were the places where many lower income black children had fathers at home. Poor black boys did well in such places, whether their own fathers were present or not. This is a path-breaking finding, said William Julius Wilson, a Harvard sociologist whose books have chronicled the economic struggles of black men. They are not talking about the direct effect on a boy's own parents' marital status. They're talking about the presence of fathers in a given census tract. So it is really, really revolutionary for them to finally suggest this because the constant and this channel opens up and some of the black women who I kind of recognize from certain circles and certain channels and the discussions that have come up, the beating of black women about the neck and the head with the cat o' nine tails is you kick the fathers out the home for wicked welfare and hair weaves, and they're not doing well because they're not in the home. They're not in the home. Now, the bigger part of this, which I don't even know if I can even cover here, is that nobody ever says that they're legally married to each other. And even better, married to each other before the production of children even begins. They just need to be in the home. So it almost implies if I were to go find a black man who suffered some traumatic accident and was a vegetable in a bed, but still, vibrating brain functions, maybe on some type of what's the machine that makes your heart pump for you. And I just wheeled him into my house with 2 or 3 children that maybe were his before he had the accident or two black children I'd fathered with some other man. Just his presence in the home, TM. I'm trying to trademark that, in the home. Everybody's life becomes exponentially better. So without any other type of explanation, that's always been the story. So with these next few clips, what I really want to do is hone in on the fact that there's a lot happening with Black male fatherhood, and we're going to see the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative specifically deals with obviously Milwaukee, but the other clip will be from Chicago, and they also differ in other ways. This Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative is mostly geared at Black men in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. You'll see in the clip some of these Black men are well into their 40s and 50s partaking in this program, but the becoming a man, bam, this is geared at young. They don't really separate for race, and neither of these do. But see, that's the even more funnily. And going back to that last little kind of whiny Twitter feed from that guy, is that we know that this is you guys. We know there's something about you as Black men, and then the Black woman who keeps giving birth to your children and participating in this. There's something about you as a people that doesn't value being married before you produce children, being financially viable, let alone emotionally viable before you do such practice. And this again, just for prefaces before I go any further, this is not letting, and I don't even, actually, no, I'm not going to say that because too many Black women in these circles, we all do this. And I'm trying to make a break. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, well, I'm about calling out the Black women, the moms, single moms too. When I feel like I'm moved to do videos, and which I will be, to specifically isolate the Black woman, her actions and choices, I will do so. But I'm not going to make it a point of saying, well, I'm talking about both of you guys. When it fits and suits me to say it, I will. Where it doesn't, it doesn't. So without further ado, again, we're moving into this key point that this New York Times article just basically said. It's not necessarily Black men and Black women being married and having children in the home. This is almost like my theory, and this is the grasping for straws. We can't keep recycling the Moynihan Report and all these, like, the normie conservatives. It's a Democrat plantation, Planned Parenthood. They need fathers in the home and Jesus in the home. We can't, and then, maybe the more liberal SJW types is like, it's white supremacy, and, we need to just have more money for them programs. At a certain point, we're leaving those arguments behind on both sides of the aisle because there's something grating. And even Saylor, I can't recall where his tweets pointed this out, that it's race. It's race, it's race, it's race. It's genetics, it's human biodiversity, it's race realism that is a part of the problem here. So let's just move into this clip, and I'll play that for you right now. Yeah.
This is a Black River Web exclusive. This was the first Milwaukee Fatherhood Summit held in 2006. Organizers of the two-day event hoped to attract a few hundred fathers. Over 1,200 showed up. Since then, the annual summit and other sponsored events have served thousands of dads, their children, and their families in the greater Milwaukee area.
Men, by and large, do care about their role as fathers, and they want to be the best dad they can be. And in some cases, men need help, and that's why we exist.
The summit focuses on helping fathers overcome the obstacles that prevent them from being good parents to their children. I think a lot of us as Black men are struggling to be something we've never seen, which is fathers. We either didn't have father at home or we had father at home, but he wasn't doing the things that he was supposed to be doing. And what you find when you look at the statistics is that virtually every measure that we use to determine the dysfunction in our community is made worse if father's not at home.
Growing up, I never really had a father myself, so.
Okay, so we're going to pause. Let's move back. So you're getting like an overlay of what this is. It's a local effort in the city of Milwaukee to discuss fatherhood and give them the tools they need. So he made some interesting points, but this was the one that really stuck out. So we're gonna play it one more quick time, and I'm just gonna pick apart some of what he's saying here. Just one moment.
Being good parents to their children. I think a lot of us as black men are struggling to be something we've never seen, which is fathers. We either didn't have father at home or we had father at home, but he wasn't doing the things that he was supposed to be doing.
Okay, so quick pause. So we're struggling to do something we've never seen before. So we either didn't have him around altogether, or he was around, but he wasn't doing the things he was supposed to be doing. So that opens up a whole nother subset of questions there. So again, the story is often told that by various sources, like there's these superhuman black women who taken all the jobs, birthing all these babies, like swinging from a vine on their own. And even that meme that's kind of persisted around, like it's usually the stock image of that black woman with her like brown like shirt and pants on, and she's kind of overweight, dumpy, and she's got her finger up mid rolling her neck. I'm a strong woman, don't need no man. So when I was watching this clip, and there's quite a few little tidbits in here, but this one was really telling to me because this is a big part of the argument in the story that's never told. So there's a good chunk of people, and I'll even count myself in the latter category, where I didn't have a father and I did not ever meet him until I was in my late 20s, which was just a few years ago. And then on the other hand, you have them around or in the home at some point, but they're not doing the things they're supposed to be doing. And we'll just leave that a little open-ended for now, because I think in a few other places will come up to that some suggestions to what they were doing when they were in the home, but that they weren't supposed to be doing. So I'm gonna move through a little bit through this clip, but then I think actually I'm gonna break off the young man who starts speaking right after this. I think I want to skip over him and move into something else. So let's just finish listening to the rest of this little tidbit here. So much in a 30-second soundbite.
And what you find when you look at the statistics is that virtually every measure that we use to determine the dysfunction in our community is made worse if father's not at home.
Growing up, I never really had a father myself.
So again, so it's made worse by him not being there. But just moving back to New York Times article, again, like my example before, like if I just grab some comatose black man in a hospital bed that can't move and can't speak, his sheer presence alone, provides that, I'm changing his diapers, feeding him meals. He can't move, he can't do anything, but he's alive by the medical standards we describe as being alive. So you're telling me just that alone, I'm using a very extreme example, but just to magnify what they're suggesting here. He just has to be present or in the home or be around. So that's what they're saying here in this piece. And then we go back to New York Times. They're saying the same thing. Even after the past decade, particularly black men specifically beating up on black women about we're not married to these men. Well, that's the thing. Nobody ever talks about them actually being married. He said just needs to be in the home for just there, present, put their hand up in homeroom. That's supposed to be enough. But this New York Times article just this past week blows us out the water, because they're just saying within a given census tract, there just needs to be fathers there. That in itself is problematic too, because then what do we define just by being in the same census tract? Are we going to be walking nearby these men who are fathers? Are these men who are fathers of other children going to be reaching out and doing something for them? Who knows? But anywho, actually, we'll keep going because right on the tail end of this guy, there's actually a nice little exchange between one of the black male father participants and one of the black men leading this panel. So we'll just move through this next moment or so, and I'll stop after their exchange.
So I decided I didn't want my child to grow up the same way that I did, that I wanted him to know that his father's always there for him.
Beyond not knowing how to be a father, many Milwaukee dads find themselves trapped by hard economic times and emotional feelings when relationships go bad.
I owe child support.
Who is the person who told you can't see the child?
The mom.
All right.
She's telling me I can't see the kids, even though it's I'm in contempt because I owe money.
Stop. Let's talk about a couple of things. If there is ever a court order for payment and you can't make the total payment, pay what you can. But if all you have is $10, do something.
We want fathers to be.
I'm sorry. $10, really? So we get down to the brass and tacks of this, where like $10 is the make or break. So did you see like how this angsty and angry that guy was? And like the thing is, so this will come back because I didn't even have to want to do a subset of this because I knew it was going to come up numerous times in these clips. They're not even legally married. They're in relationships and they're having sex and producing children out of wedlock in these basically, rap scrabble relationships. And so there's the fault files on both sides of the table in this race, that you're just basically dating someone for X amount of time, then you get knocked up by them and you have a baby, you have no money. He had nothing to bring to the table to even begin with. But in just taking and looking at this group of these men sitting around here, they all were happy to be having sex with these women that more often than not they weren't married to. I know we ran into child support issues and money and financial penalties outside of it once people are married and then they divorce. But I'm not going to go run the data. You go run and bring it back to me because I'm almost 95% certain that this is how it'll stand. Especially if you square away the 60-70% of black women having children out of wedlock. That tells you the majority of these men aren't married to these women. That we're dealing with people who are in dating relationships, who are having unprotected sex with people they were not married to, and producing children out of those unions. And then we get these fatherhood initiatives. They're just kind of set here to bring these men back into the fold. But this man's in contempt already. So that tells me like how little financial stability that he has to even contribute. Before I go any further into this tangent, so with this New York Times article is almost suggesting that these men, so it's the city of Milwaukee, we already talked about the city of Milwaukee here, just them, even if they just 10 minutes ago left this fatherhood initiative, they're sitting around trying to figure out how they're going to get out of contempt of court. I'm going to put this on silent. Let's see if I can do it. And let this move for a second. Because what you're going to see, he has some interesting things to say. We'll just keep it moving. Oh, so child support sessions. Here it is. Screenings. Oh, they were able to even get George Foreman to come. So we'll just stop there. Here's a good part. Driver's license recovery. So apparently, no, it could be for other things tied tangentially to owing back child support. I don't particularly know, especially in like Milwaukee, what they do or don't do when you owe back child support. But part of this issue is they're saying, they're here to be better fathers. But now they've already stacked so many other financial penalties and legal penalties on top of themselves. I mean, they're not sitting here. We think fatherhood initiative. Well, I mean, I know what most people probably think, but they're already sitting here dealing with all this financial fallout and things they're not able to participate in or do because they're not only are they not in the home, they don't have any money. They obviously just so telling. Again, going back to the New York Times article, so maybe these guys were raised millionaires, but now they've fallen about, and they're not millionaires anymore because white men are more likely to be raised wealthy and stay wealthy. But these are all those guys who were raised millionaires. Now they've fallen about the wayside, and here they are sitting here trying to figure out how they're going to scrape together $10 so they can get out of contempt so they can see their kid again because the chick won't let them. Yeah, I was watching this last night. I think he had something interesting to say. Let's just pull up to this man here because they go, yeah, because then so they're telling you that there's a lot here that these guys are doing that it's about being fathers, but it's also very much specifically a lot of like little courses. And the funny thing I noticed, there's food. And then I said they should just show up. I mean, I would think a little bit of free coffee would be one thing, but early on we saw them sitting at tables having a little bit of like a pancake breakfast and what have you. Like, are we really spending this kind of money on this? Like, this is what it takes for us to get them into the picture. This is what a local city like Milwaukee is spending. And so before I push play again, this is so funny to me because, we hear black men, but you hear white men, especially, maybe more MGTOW red pill type saying that, oh, well, these women are sitting here in this Section 8 and they're keeping father lives in the divorce courts and they're single welfare moms and they're, buying filet mignons and lobster tails and just all this kind of being aghast at like anything that women on the dole may be spending. But on the back end, in a situation like this, we're spending money for these men who are producing progeny on the dole. So we're almost in this kind of like snake eating its own tail here. And I just kind of find it funny that we have that city like this has these resources to spend on these men to get them to come in to be fathers. But then it's not even about them being fathers and show them how to be engaged with their children or show them how to get their driver's license back or to get health screenings or to eat like, I'm not saying they were eating some fancy like, Hilton Hotel breakfast. It's probably just some normal Cisco pancakes and eggs. But still, like, so we're paying for them for food. No, go pay for your own food. Anyway.
People so many behind in arrears and interest, so I knew that I was coming here and they would knock off something. Plus, give me some information about how to become more involved in my child's life, financial wise. So, and I found the information useful, very useful.
So should these people even be having children to begin with? Like, these are like the most basic questions that we ask anyone partaking in society to be a part of. So we call it with the first two things. Oh, they're showing me how to be more involved financially. And because they do mention some other part, even this one or the other clip, that there's some networking and jobs involved. Let me just go back 1 second.
So, and I found the information useful, very useful, about how to become. I knew that I was coming here and they would knock off something. Plus,
there you go. So the way somebody got, because the other father you heard previously, he's in arrears of payments for child support. So I'm gonna just go out on a limb and tie these two statements together. That part of the reason they're also here is because just by showing up and participating in these things, that the city and the local government will maybe knock a few dollars off, or just show that there's like same with if you're on welfare, receiving bennies, you have to be applying for jobs. So you have to show that you have filled out job applications, gone on interviews, etc. So then on top of that, I have to kind of give a little bit of a side eye, like, they're really here to better for themselves, their children, but they're now so far down the rabbit hole financially and legally that this is the next best thing that they can do. So, anyway, so George Foreman is here. Well, let's keep playing this part because this guy
about how to become more involved.
Thinking this is good and that's good.
I don't need to play the whole clip. Health screenings and health resources and screenings. So, they're here to also, you saw a little pamphlet just a second ago. They're also here to get maybe get, their blood pressure checked or whatever else, other little things that affect men and affect fathers. So there's all this wealth of resources here that we're spending. And it's just one city, one particular area that I'm not trying to extrapolate out, but I would love if someone knows in their city that's not Milwaukee, the example we're using here. Could you tell me if you know there's anything like this in your city? Because I would love to throw this, I'm going to say this, I would love to throw this back at the particularly men who harp on about single moms and welfare. Single moms and welfare. We're also spending money as taxpayers on the back end for these delinquent fathers with their child support payments. Can they just maybe keep in their pants? Like one thing I was watching this in the other clip. Can we just give them a vasectomy? Like while you're here, we'll give it all. The city and the state can just pay all the child support if you get a vasectomy, and we'll reverse it when you know figure yourself out, because we really don't need to be spending all this money and time and energy on people like this. Anyway, this is also, excuse me, the Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative in 2013, and it kind of breaks off into the same story, but I just love the little opening blurb that they give. Well, actually, funnily enough, I don't think I actually finished this one. So maybe in a part two at some point, because I do want to talk more about this as this relates to out of wedlock births, particularly the Black family, the Black race, this New York Times article, the Moynihan report. We keep having all these discussions about more Black fathers in the home, and just even this clip originally shows that the reasons they're not in the home, they don't want to be, they don't really even have the capability to even be there before they start, reproducing and having unprotected sex with women they're not married to. So I don't really understand why we need another article, another this or that to like flap our gums about, you know, how to get them involved. They're not going to be involved. And so many of them are so far gone, they've already produced children in circumstances they should have never been allowed to breed in. And the women who have been opening their legs for them, it's the same thing. So this is example 2 from also our lovely city of Milwaukee. It's just a 30-second clip. Chris Abele from Milwaukee County, was running for Milwaukee County City Executive or something. And this is one of the ads that came up in one of my searches. And obviously, since we're already talking about the city of Milwaukee, it's kind of nice to stay on this example. So let's move over here to this. Just a 30-second bite. So I'll let it play in full. If I want to come back and reiterate something, I'll do that after.
Sometimes, as a young dad, you're not very mature about things. You're not doing the things that you're supposed to do. My name is Otis Walton, and I am a military veteran. The guys in the program, they wanted to pay child support and take care of their children, but they didn't have the jobs or the skills. The program really helped. For me being a dad and granddad, it's a big accomplishment. I'm very glad that Chris Abele is fighting for fathers. It's nice to know that there's someone out there working for the community for a change.
Did you see, catch that? So, especially the end, I'll just make that a quick point. So, we have the nice
sometimes,
guy running for office. He's helping these poor indigent Black people, Black men and their Black sons or grandsons. He said he's a father and a grandfather. So, did you catch that? Sometimes as young Black fathers, we're not doing it. We're irresponsible or immature and not doing things we're supposed to do. Let's just make sure we get his words right.
As a young dad, you're not very mature about things. You're not doing the things that you're supposed to do. My name.
Didn't we catch that before in the other clip? It's running together for me a little bit. I just moved through different thoughts and different things that I want to say. But I think that's what the other man said. Well, we're not doing things we're supposed to do. We don't really know what's going on. Oh, well, here we go. This just because this is too perfect. And there are separate windows, so you have to bear with me for 1 second. So actually, we'll just watch this again, and we're going to go back and feed this into what we just discussed with this man. So this is just part of the ad again, and then we'll jump back over to what was said in the Fatherhood Initiative.
Sometimes, as a young dad, you're not very mature about things. You're not doing the things that you're supposed to do. My name is Otis Walton, and
Sometimes you're a young dad. Now it's funny when he didn't say we're a young man, but then when I found out my wife or girlfriend was pregnant, that meant I had to knuckle up and figure things out that I couldn't be doing certain things that I was doing previously. And I had to make different changes. So even as a man who's, let's just say is the first child, 9 months, or even close to just a year, just say a year, because, it's a nice roundabout time. That there's a year that you need to get in gear. As a woman, it happens the minute the sperm meets the egg. But there's a year, 9 months to a year, where you know that this is coming and this is a responsibility you have to uphold. But you're saying that even with the being a young dad, you're a young guy, she's got a kid, you got a kid on the way. So you're not even giving us a parameter of how long you were immature for. You're just here, and all this time you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Find that very, very telling. So let's feed that back into what was said here in this Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative clip.
From being good parents.
Oh, sorry guys. Pause. Escape. Just dairy. Go.
Them from being good parents to their children. I think a lot of us as black men are struggling to be something we've never seen, which is fathers. We either didn't have father at home, or we had father at home, but he wasn't doing the things that he was supposed to be doing. And what you find when you look at the statistics is that virtually every measure that we use to determine the dysfunction in our community is made worse if father's not at home.
Growing up,
So yeah, it's funny because I just had another thought. There's this constant, well, up until 1965, exactly midnight, when every black woman started burning her bra and became a feminist, everything was just perfect and fine. So you're saying you guys have never, ever, ever seen fatherhood before. Like never, ever, 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 ever. Interesting how the dynamic in this story always just kind of changes over time. So you don't really know what you're doing. So like what he mentioned in the latter part of his statement was that kind of ties into the other guy. Well, yeah, I was a young, immature dad, and when we're young and immature, we don't really know what's going on. And again, overall, I guess I'll just leave this here because I think I've talked for quite a bit. And there's more to say, but I think I feel confident in this third recording of this, and I've covered the points I wanted to cover. And I think I can just feed it back in a second and just tie it back into New York Times article's conclusion. But there's a whole lot more that's not being said here in these discussions. So we want them to be present, but look at the men in this story. And this clip we watched from Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative is an example. I know I said I was going to talk about the becoming a man clip, but I think maybe, well, I think I can just maybe isolate a portion of this out that I think might be helpful. Let me just kind of hone in on a few other points while I decide if I want to use this or not. Yeah, actually, this might be a good one to sign off on. Because then they start getting into a couple of things here. Yeah, this might be something actually better to sign off on. So let me just take a second to go relate back everything we discussed so far to the New York Times piece. So we keep being told that, here, I'm going to pull directly from the article. I'm not going to move back over to the link itself. Just know that I'm reading from the New York Times article in the link, the subject at hand here. So there's a section here that reads, other fathers in the community can provide boys with role models and mentors, researchers say, and their presence may indicate other neighborhood factors that benefit families, like lower incarceration rates and better job opportunities. The research makes clear that there is something unique about the obstacles black males face. The gap between Hispanics and whites is narrower, and their incomes will converge within a couple generations if mobility stays the same. And I guess I didn't need to really factor it in. It kind of trails off. So basically, all I need to really have said there is the research makes it clear there's something unique about the obstacles black males face. And I actually made a note to myself when I read that jumped out at me. Each other, and black women who won't stop it. That's the problem that most of you face. We've had these examples I pulled. Black men admit that, we start off as young, immature dads. We don't really know what we're doing. And then it just obviously is a campaign ad. And he kind of let himself be used for this purpose. There's probably things that we're not seeing factored in here that, you need someone helping the community and teaching you how to, like, you don't have any money or economic skills. So that again reaches back to the article itself, that they don't have any money, they don't have the same type of job skills that Black women apparently are just floating into. But then that's not obviously what it's saying. I'm being a little facetious there, but why is that? Why haven't you transitioned and moved into other types of economic mobility that even other non-white races and men and man should do? And a very stereotypical, blatant point, the young Asian guy who can, at least play off the stereotype of being good with numbers can, be some STEM guy. The various types of Asian groups, Korean, Chinese, Hmong, whatever, who run a nail shop or run a laundry in the city, run like those little kind of like plexiglass Chinese restaurants in the inner city urban areas. They've managed to make a way for themselves and find something to do. We're going to constantly be coming back to this as Black male just can't figure out how to function in this 20th, 21st century world. Then maybe he should be reproducing. And then, like I said before, these Black women who are reproducing with them ought to stop it, because we don't have time in 2018 and beyond to keep running these New York Times stories. They're basically the same recycled Moynihan-ish stories that he needs to be in the home, he needs fathers. They can't get a grasp on how to manage themselves in this new world financially. So what are we even talking about anymore? It's not about wishing anyone ill. I just don't want to hear the story regurgitated forever and forever and ever. And then again, is what I said initially struck me is now, more so than just being a blacks versus whites thing in class, now you're trying to subtly sit here and shade me and Black women and other Black girls as if we're doing something wrong here, and we're part of the oppression of them too. So moving into the article again, and actually here, let me move over to it because I should show you this. But we're still in it to win it. Is this the one? Yep. Okay. So okay, here it is. All right, so I guess I should read the previous paragraph to make sure this all sinks in together. So it's not just being Black, but being male that has been hyper stereotyped in this negative way, in which we made Black men scary, intimidating, with a propensity towards violence, says Noelle Hurd, a psychology professor at the University of Virginia. Before I even segue into the second point, no, let's do that first. She said this racist stereotype particularly hurts Black men economically now that service sector jobs requiring interaction with customers have replaced the manufacturing jobs that previously employed men with less education. And I have a whole little subset of notes there. First, well, it's just not that being Black, being male has been stereotyped in this negative ways, made them scary, propensity towards violence. And that's not the same for Black women and Black girls. That we've seen, and actually more often than not, outside of the Black race and the Black community, but even more particularly, it's funny how they try to separate Black women out in this article, but I can easily bring us back to the fold and separate Black men away from this, where they have actively participated in certain types of caricatures and behaviors to make Black women these scary, big, beastie women intent on enacting violence and ready to slap somebody. Like, I mean, look at the whole Tyler Perry Medea universe. This very hyper aggressive Black auntie grandmama who is always ready to pull a gun out of her purse and start shooting somebody or start slapping someone around. We've even kind of, I've discussed with other Black women and seen this discussion come up of even shows like Martin Lawrence, the comedian. His character Shanae. Jamie Foxx even had a Black woman character that he used to play, really stank hair weave, curled up lips, rolling her neck, threatening to fight somebody. So it's so funny how we talk about this hyper stereotyped Black male that's scary, intimidating, propensity towards violence. But not only have we seen those images about Black women come from non-Black people and maybe be reiterated by, but funnily more I think about it, first they kind of come from black men, and then most whites, men and women, then kind of pick up from that and kind of throw it back at us. So again, that's maybe something to unpack for another time, just specifically onto itself. But let's keep moving from there. So this whole so then the second half of this ties back into what we've been discussing so far. So this racist stereotype hurts them, but it's not just a stereotype. Some of these things are actually true. And if you have service sector jobs and we're saying requires more interaction with customers, are you basically just saying so like it's just because of these stereotypes? It's not that maybe there's too much of a difficulty that sometimes black men have with engaging with people in a polite type of like hi there. It's not even like when they're being overly aggressive. This is the problem I have a lot of young people now, race aside. Not that like I'm like some terribly older person. I'm just over 30 and I'm under 35. I'll just leave it there and say that. But I'm noticing with people that I've worked with and interact with who are even younger, there's this kind of there's this whole subgenre of music called mumblecore. I think it's kind of maybe part of like the subset of the emo scene or whatever, but like this is mumbling that a lot of young people do. And I've noticed this is some young black men that I have interacted with. They kind of do this like, yeah, well, when they mumble and they're not very, and I've noticed with the girls too. I was actually at Qdoba like a day or two ago. And she was a young black girl who was working there and she kind of had to defer to the white guy in his like 20s to kind of like, she was new. You could tell she was new, but even aside that, it's just kind of like reticence that I've noticed amongst them and younger folks. So a lot of interaction with customers, they just have to like, you have to like figure this out. And now that everything's moved service sector, it's been moving in this trajectory for some time. But as these other clips I've showed you from Walking Fatherhood Initiative, they're so stuck in trying to get these black men out of these dastardly positions of having no financial economic mobility to do anything to feed or produce or provide or protect for the children that they willy-nilly with black women brought into this world to begin with. Do we really even have time to like go back and steer them towards figuring out the transition to service sector, which has been ongoing for about probably 20, 30 years now anyway? So in this paragraph just is really nonsensical. She said this racist stereotype particularly hurts black men economically now that service sector jobs requiring interaction with customers have replaced the manufacturing jobs that previously employed men with less education. And I made a note that's a weird type of equivalence. You catch they're kind of saying two things at once. You're trying to say that requiring interaction with customers is and versus men with less education. That's not necessarily a comparative stance to take. There's people who have maybe an eighth grade education or sixth grade education who can read and write and talk to people. I mean, you have very polite children under the age of like 6 or 7 who can politely interact with people and interact with folks, but they have very little education because they're under the age of like 8 or 10. So they're making this weird, strange equivalency there. So basically, interaction with customers employ men with less education. Do you need a lot of education to like work a service sector? Every service sector job in this country? No. Like, let's say you work at at a McDonald's or a Qdoba or something. You don't need a lot of education to interact with people, but you need certain soft social skills. Uh, wait, be able to think ahead, kind of read people, get a feel for them in certain ways or another. Um, so I just found that really, really odd how they phrased that. So they're getting left behind in this because these stereotypes, well, these same stereotypes hit and hurt black women and girls too. And I've been in certain experiences where, like I've noticed some of them aren't really functioning in some of these more service sector jobs that you're seeing out here. But anyway, going into a little bit more of a tangent I prefer, but just read that because I just found that really jarring. Like, well, wait a second. Interacting with customers is not equal to or the equivalent of having less education. There's people who have a high school diploma who are awesome in the service sector. I mean, if you think about maybe your average like Olive Garden or very kind of basic interactive, even just the basic service industry like restaurants and bars, anyone can kind of pick up those jobs on their own without having much education. But there's people with their master's degrees who work those jobs and they can, they can sink or swim as well. So, Oh, okay. So I did say that what I would do is, well, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave on this. I'm gonna leave on this note. Actually, ah, I've like planned this out in so many different ways, and I didn't really I kept thinking I would have a way to do this, but again, it's a lengthier video. You having me kind of like now know how I can really jump in here and dig in some things, man. So I don't want to cut myself off too short, but I also don't want to go on too long without like a place to go. So I think what I'm gonna do is here we're gonna look at this real quick because this is one of the part of the article, the New York Times piece that jumped out to me. Actually, so this is, I'm going to read another excerpt. I can actually move back over and find this for you real quick. So look at the headline here. Black boys considered cool and tough while black girls stereotyped as loud, ghetto and loud in suburban schools. Now, I get really iffy about Huffington Post and like a lot of social science study essays. Like, for instance, there's that one, everyone, I've seen it from Stormfront to like more black women sovereign empowerment swirl circles. The 92% of biracial children to black men are born out of wedlock or on welfare. When you get down to the methodology, she only was able to garner maybe like 500 or 1,000 women, non-black women to survey. I would like to see more women and to make a little bit more of a judgment because 92% comes off as just so like abrasive. And there's a couple reasons why I'm like, I don't have a problem with the study. I just have a problem with the methodology. I want to see bigger numbers. Because then I would say if we had more, maybe like out of 10,000 or maybe like 5,000, we get somewhere more to like that seems a little bit more reasonable to me. Like we'd be like, well, 60% or maybe 50% or 40. I don't know. I just find that a little bit overwhelming. So that's one of the reasons I don't really like Huffington Post. There's a lot of like the kind of black voices kind of like gotcha. But this is interestingly enough because like the article, this New York Times piece that we've been discussing, attempts to remove black women and girls as like they were just doing something, we're oppressing them, but in a more social sense. So I'm not really there's if you, I'll put this link below, and you'll see you can go click over to the actual studies that they pulled this from. But I can even anecdotally attest to what they're getting at here in this article. And I've experienced it. And I think plenty of black women could admit to this. And this almost deserves another discussion to itself that I wanted to talk about, that I would like to talk about more in depth, but then just tying it directly back to the New York Times piece. Like, for instance, what they say here towards the end is, where'd it go? Okay, there we go. Well, although all children benefit from growing up in places with higher incomes and more resources, black children do not benefit nearly as much as white children do. Moving black boys to opportunity is no guarantee they can tap into it. So moving them to opportunity, again, that's just very loose type of like, I don't hear nor there language that I don't even want to unpack because it's kind of not really giving you anything to really hone into. Move them to opportunity, we'll leave that alone. So then that's one thing that I made the note here about moving to this article, because what these two studies are featured in here that you can go look at kind of suggests is that, just read the headline. They're considered cool and tough while black girls are considered ghetto and loud in suburban schools. And this is even yourself with a lot of things that we can talk about. Music, the whole kind of Cardi B discussion right now, that if she were a darker skinned black woman, if she was my complexion and a fully black African American woman, not some part mestizo, Hispanic, Latina black chick, her ghetto uncouthness is considered kind of cool and kitsch, where if she was a darker skinned black woman, look like me, she'd be some ghetto ratchet hood rat. And so this article kind of pulls it apart. And I've had experiences like this. I was going to share an anecdote, but I don't not think about it. It's not so fitting as I would like it to be. But the basic premise here that they're uncovering between these two studies is letting you know that these are things that we already see in the culture. So another reason I find, as we've discussed this, a lot less, well, I don't want to say sympathy was ever on the docket, But this idea, this poor little black boy, and this racism everywhere. But we see it in the media and all of the culture. Like I'm not gonna pull these up in this example, but I made a little side note to myself. Look at the show. Look at shows like Stranger Things. We got the cute little black boy who just happens to be the friend of all these white kids in suburban Indiana in like the middle of 1982. And it's only like the second season in, and I've watched a good chunk of the series with some friends of mine, but I kind of found it funny that they haven't really given up a point like where his parents are. Like you say, oh, he lives there. There's probably in that time period not that many black kids living in some suburb, and he's just almost like this side thought fixture there. Just random. They have this random black boyfriend in suburban Indiana in 1982. I mean, it just overall makes no sense. I remember when I first sat down watching my very white liberal suburban friends, I was in the back of my head like, what? So they're always just really happy to push, like, some little black boy. He's cool. He's their like little buddy friend. And he's just like the other black boys. But you don't really see them there being this angle to push black women or girls in the same sense into the cultural periphery. So this article actually feeds in something else I would like to talk about way more separately, but just in that specific excerpt from the essay itself, that the society views black boys differently than black girls. Like actually, I think I pulled a different part a minute ago here, but let me just show you this because it's that important. So first, moving them to opportunity is no guarantee they tap into it, and they don't benefit from moving. But this study and also some other evidence that that's a little bit more colloquial, a little more anecdotal that I could even share is definitely it will test you to this, that they don't really actually fare so bad being in these white, more suburban areas when we've had a whole music and pop culture that's transitioned over to very much uplifting and pushing the black male's cool image. I don't. So are they saying he's going to go become a lawyer and make eight figures? No, but if Billy and Matt want to hang out with him because he's a cool black kid, and Becky and Tara want to like kind of like smooch on him and dote on him because he's a cool, tough, alpha black guy, then he's getting opportunity that may not necessarily be what they're trying to suggest here. Like he's going to become like, some 6-figure lawyer, but he's getting cultural, social bonus points that we've already seen black girls, as suggested in a lot of circles, in certain cases, not getting here in this. So let's go back over to, oh, I didn't mean to pull that out. Oh, dagnabbit, I accidentally pulled it out. This screen sharing thing is really exhausting. That's exhausting. We'll get to the end, folks. So I think you can see me here. Let's go back to still here, folks. Oh. Okay. Actually, I think I might have stepped on my own toes again. Okay. So, I think honestly, I think I've said quite enough here, Lisa, just kind of cut my teeth on this whole discussion. And I think I should just stop here because I think we've been at it for about an hour. And I think that's enough for you all to digest. So let me just wrap this up in closing. One, this New York Times article is bullshit. No, but it is. There is basically this type of like one step to this box step that we're going to have to constantly do, that we're never going to address. Like for one, that maybe, just maybe, we really shouldn't have people breeding willy-nilly, that we would have some of these poor black boys with all this racism crushing them. if we were honest about reproductive choices and reproductive stances amongst Black people, the men, the women, and the women involved, so we can maybe move away from these things. We don't need to suggest in certain in certain parts of studies like this that Black women and girls are having some completely different experience from Black boys without saying boys and girls are different from each other, and we have to account for those differences in gender, and that Black boys and girls may be raised to have certain beliefs and certain ideas. Like, without going back too far, when this first came up and I was tweeting about this and I was kind of engaging on Steve Saylor's Twitter feed about it, one of the comments that I made was, well, part of this is that Black women and girls, more often than not, actually, I kind of borderline stole this from Kendall St. Charles, a discussion she had towards the end of her time on YouTube at the moment, was that a lot of Black women and girls know that they can't expect or wait on a chocolate Prince Charming to come for them or save them or marry them, that we don't live the same type of lives that most non-Black people live, where you go to school, get a degree, you're both in school together, graduate, you get married, you have children, you move along that path together. Well, with the marriage rates being what they have been for some time amongst Black people, particularly, we can't, as Black women, rely on that and think that that's going to ever be a thing that we end up partaking in. So we have to go to school and get the degrees and maybe take jobs from the poor little Black man and keep it moving. So when we try to pull like the life is affecting Black women and girls' choices differently, you better believe they're doing that because we have to make different choices, and factoring the fact that a lot of these Black men aren't, when they do marry, when they can, as you've seen in a few clips that we just played tonight, that some of these men have, in all actuality, no business.
Our relationship was good. Was started.
Oh, that's going to be a later video. I found that in the research tonight. They're not in the home. They don't know what to do. And then the girls like us making decisions, like myself, like I said, I didn't have a father in the home. I'm between the ages of 30 and 35, and I just met my father, like, I was in my late 20s, so I was like 27. So I just met him then. So just moving from that, there's a lot in this New York Times article that's just, it's just the same rehashing. We all have in this. It's not written for anyone to actually do anything. It's just more of the same. It's more racism, more oppression. But what really got me kind of like really bothered about this is just going on, as it's this very implication. Now we're gonna like start telling the Black woman this is partially your fault too. And this is funny. This isn't the first time this has come up. We've talked about this. Like now it's saying you took all the jobs and the WIC and the welfare, and the white man will hire us for a job. And Kendall had a joke about this. She's like, yeah, like one of her videos, she's being very cheeky. So I was supposed to just sit here and starve in the corner and not work and be employed in some type of like silent hunger protest because he won't hire you for a job. Have you and other Black men maybe stopped a fair way you can take care of yourselves and employ yourselves and each other to do something with your lives? It's just the falling upon us as Black women and our choices and our own existence to carry you and lift you up because the evil white man won't let you do something. He's so evil and white, he letting us work, letting us live in his system without giving us as much grief, I guess, in certain ways or another. But anyway, so that was hopefully something we just wanted to walk through with some of these clips and some of these anecdotes, is that there's a lot more that this New York Times study isn't covering. It was just kind of a nice little, oh my God, racism article to put up. To put up and get people kind of hot and bothered about. I think I'll have to come back to this again. I know it's a lengthy video, and I do apologize. But these are some of the longer think piece studies that I would like to do on this channel, and I know that maybe in the future I would like to do this live alongside with some of you and just kind of go live and give you a little bit of time to kind of dip in. But I just really want to record this and just kind of free fall into it. So I think I've said quite a bit, and I think I would probably like to do is actually come back. Maybe I'm gonna lay down and go to bed in like probably next few minutes. It's about midnight my time. I have to go yoga in the morning and then go to work. So I'll probably be thinking about this video tomorrow during my yoga class and during my work day. And I might want to come back with a few other kind of follow-up points. And I like this mechanism of doing this and be able to screen share with you folks. This was a lot of fun for me for the first time. And I'll be back. So I hope you listen to this the whole way or put it on pause, come back later, do whatever you got to do. And there's definitely going to be more to come. So I will leave that here. And I'll probably drop a few extra links in the description too for some people you guys should check out. And maybe I'll come back and do a shorter video sometime tomorrow too, just something you can digest a little easier, a little quicker. And so that's it. Let me stop here. Keep talking, because if you haven't been able to tell so far, I can keep on chit-chatting like a monkey in a tree. So without further ado, good night, my lovely people. Like, share, and subscribe. Feel free to hit me up here. I know you can see my Twitter handle feed in the background with the icon and stuff. So I'm thinking I'm going to do is link this into Twitter finally and start engaging there. So hopefully bring some more people into our little discussion circle here. So blah, blah, blah. Have a good night, folks. Thanks for listening. And I'll just upload it within the next few. Cheers.